What's up, everybody? Hogan 93 in the place to be. Welcome to the Wrestling Corner episode. Yeah, I can't even do one now. 18 of season 5. Uh-oh, here comes the playback. Stop that. All right, anyway. So yeah, welcome to the Wrestling Corner. Hope you guys are having a good spending your Saturday. I guess your Valentine's Day Eve. Very well. I just came from hanging out with a couple of friends of mine. The day kind of started off, the occasion started kind of rocky, but over time it went out to go on to be for you know you know for the best. It worked out for the best. Especially playing Time Crisis. It's always good to play Time Crisis. For those of you that know, Time Crisis is one of the best first-person shooter, or rail shooter games of all time. And it's one that you can actually, survive a great deal in because of the cover system and stuff and so forth. And also, for those that are in the Northeast we're being dealt with a big cold front. Cold fronts to the point that these winds are considered life-threatening. Yeah, life-threatening. Like as if, you expose skin, you're probably gonna get frostbite or something, with long exposure. But anyway, this is the 18 edition of the Wrestling Corner on today's. Before that, I also like to say that the Wrestling Corner I could have done the Wrestling Corner Tuesday, but I was getting over a cold that kind of started Friday with an itchy throat, and then Sunday is when everything came while I was watching the Super Bowl. It got to the point where I didn't go to school Monday. I was homesick, and then Tuesday I came back. I would have done it Tuesday, but I didn't want you guys to have to deal with me, just sniffling and everything and coughing. Well, I think the cough was gone Tuesday, but just all the snot and stuff. I didn't want you guys to deal with that. So, Shaq. I'm also watching the NBA All-Star Weekend, but that's the reason for why the Wrestling Corner was not Tuesday. But the cold is gone, and like I said in the script, speaking of gone, gone has been a pretty operative word because this past Monday, Bryan Danielson, or also known as Daniel Bryan, officially announced his retirement of in-ring competition, making him gone from in-ring competition. And then, initially I thought that was going to be the biggest news to talk about in terms of wrestling for this week. But then big news, then controversial news dropped the day after. And I didn't know about it until I was about to get off work. And it was that Titus O'Neil had been suspended. So basically for the corner, I'll be talking about Bryan's retirement speech, also reflecting on his career. I knew Bryan before coming into WWE, but I didn't really get to see a lot of his Ring of Honor work. So most of my memories of Bryan in terms of matches comes from, his work in WWE. It's not like with Samoa Joe or AJ Styles, who most of my memory from them come from their previous work before WWE. And speaking of AJ Styles, I'll also be talking about the match between him and Jericho that happened this past SmackDown. Let's see if anybody's here. So far, Bryan, what the hell's going on here? Let me just make sure. Make sure everything's okay. Right now, I'm looking at the playbacks all buffering. Okay. It seems like everything seems to be working. Okay, but without further ado, let's dive right into the shindig. Yeah, as well. Yeah, Monday. Monday. It first was on Twitter. Bryan posted a tweet. I'm not sure if what the hell just happened. Oh. Hold up. I just missed something. Oh! Oh, man. That's what I'm talking about. Bring some life back to the slam dunk contest. Man, that was awesome. I admit that was awesome. But yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it was Sunday that he posted a tweet or if it was right when Monday morning came that he posted a tweet that he was going to be announcing his retirement to in-ring competition. For the WWE. Hold on, let's see if Zach Levine can do this out there. All right, hold on. I actually did not think that the dunk contest would really derive my attention away, but seemingly it is for a little bit. All right, John's here. Hey, John's going. Okay, it was Monday at 1 p.m. All right, so yeah, it was Monday afternoon, an hour into the afternoon, he announced his retirement. He announced that he was going to retire. And then, in the chat, the chat room down there, when we talk about wrestling, saying stuff like, forgive me for that. That it wasn't that it was more that it was more of a way to get for it. The only way that he could be able to get out of his contract with the WWE because he had tried to get out of, tried to tell WWE give notice, and they wouldn't. They kept refusing his notice. Word it was the same thing that Rey Mysterio was going through when Rey Mysterio was trying to leave the WWE while he was recovering from injury. So and WWE would not appease to it. So all that was going on, and even in the build, in the wait, in the moment to the waiting moments to Bryan's retirement, when the show opened up with a video package for him, when that it still was not setting into it to me. Uh, no, it wasn't. What the hell? Okay, that's just odd. Okay, that was kind of odd. I just said an error occurred. Okay, all right. Sorry about that. But so it still was not sitting in, even with the video back. That kind of made me go against that. It was really happening, thinking that okay, maybe this is a work. Maybe this is going on to be a work or something. But they started doing the thank you Bryan, showing, like his moments, his greatest moments in WWE from his debut in NXT, the first incarnation of NXT, his match against Jericho, to winning the United States Championship from Miz, to uh, becoming Money in the Bank, winning Mr. Money and cashing in on the Big Show in 45 seconds, to Team Hell No, then to winning the WWE Championship at WrestleMania. No, actually, no. From first winning WWE Championship, first winning WWE Championship at SummerSlam against John Cena, then from him beating, you know, um, winning the Royal Heavyweight Champion or the WWE Championship at WrestleMania. So, but still, it was not setting in. But it still was not saying that okay, he's really retiring. And then the moment did come where the segment did come for him. He comes out and then he comes out and he really doesn't even get a chance to speak because the crowd is just showing their respect and admiration for the guy. And the yes is still going on. And then he finally starts speaking. And the key word of his retirement speech was that he was grateful for everything. And then he started, also he started telling us about, how that despite thinking that, despite the stuff of him being cleared, being cleared by two doctors, that was months back. But then finally, when he got his last checkup from the doctor, found out that his brain was not in the best shape for in-ring competition. So it was almost like okay, but still almost like it's not really set it in. But then when you start hearing him choke up a bit, it's like that's when it starts to set in. Like okay, this, oh, okay, this is the only thing he needs to say is that I'm officially retiring. And and also, with Bryan, Bryan has a sense of humor that I think is undervalued, but was really highlighted when he was with with the whole Team Hell No. But he showcases again when he started talking about Brie out, because of wrestling, he met Brie. He started basically, and the crowd started chanting yes, yes, and then he says, that's what Brie says all the time, and it's like, oh, it's like I didn't think he would. Like, okay, I didn't think he would go there, but the timing and everything was great. And I think for the first time in wrestling history, or probably in WWE, it could have been probably said in some indie, never know. But in WWE history, I've never heard "That's What She Said" chant, and that was the first time I've ever heard of a "That's What She Said" chant break out. As long as that saying, that phrase has been, that joke has been in history, that's the first time I've ever heard that chant be broken out in wrestling or in WWE. But I also like that he started to do that despite the injuries and everything that came out of wrestling, the good that have come out of him being in wrestling for, I believe, 16 years. He said, um, from Bree, from the admiration that the fans have given him, from meeting Connor, because of wrestling, he met Connor, who sadly passed away. Connor the Crusher, who was, but it's because of that Connor was so synonymous with Bryan. Uh, you know, so I like that Bryan did that. That despite the bad that's come out, he's grateful for wrestling because of the good thing that come out of it. He also brought up, when since they were in Seattle, that's another thing that's another thing that they didn't really set into me because it was in Seattle. It was in Seattle, Washington. He's from Aberdeen, but still, he was in his home state. But he brought up how it was in that very arena that the initial Raw hijack came when they were doing that championship, ceremony between Cena and Orton when they was about to collab the World Heavyweight and WWE, and the whole segment got taken over by the fans just chanting Bryan. Um, and then also bringing up, Occupy Raw. Yeah, that was nothing that was shown when he occupied Raw. Well, I think it was one of the best moments in wrestling because it wasn't like, those weren't plants because the sign guy was in there. And, so it looked like, they just took fans along and say, hey, just be in the ring and, just do the yes movement. It felt real. He also talked about how, that when the fans made him feel bigger than what he was because, like you said, a guy of his stature, a 5'8", 190 to 200 pounds, probably shouldn't have, and probably should never even, got to the stage or got to got the recognition or got to the um no got to the prestige and everything that he accomplished. Probably shouldn't have because wrestling's known as a big guy's sport, but he got there. and it felt natural. It did not feel like, okay, that WWE really pushed hard to get Bryan over. This Bryan guy getting over felt was one of the most natural, if it's even a word, overness in wrestling. It just felt natural when he by the time he made it to John Cena at SummerSlam, it felt like a natural. Like, I can see why they going with Bryan to go against Cena at SummerSlam. He's gotten the most over. And those string of matches that Bryan was mostly put in the build up to SummerSlam with Cena were one of the best matches in Raw history. Like the match he had with the match he had with Cesaro when he had to go against Swagger and Cesaro. When it came out, him and Cesaro was great. So he brought up stuff like that, which was great. And then when he finally, announced that, yeah, he's gonna retire. And I was watching with Chris, and Chris was like, basically like, please somebody come out, because it wanted to almost be like a swerve, but nobody came out. And he also brought how when the crowd hijacked Raw, that was the last time his dad saw him, compete or be in the ring. This is very sacred for those that know about Bryan. Right after he won the WWE Championship, I think the week he came after his honeymoon with Brie, his dad passed. It was like after Bryan won the belt, it was almost like this dark cloud was like casted over him for some odd reason. Um, hold on, guys, just listen to Kenny Smith. Okay, so for whatever reason, it was like that black cloud was cast over him. But Bryan, he wanted one more yes chin, he got it. And look, that he said that was one more, I doubt that's going to be the last yes chin we'll ever hear. As long as I live, the yes movement is still going to be in effect. His presence will still be felt, and and that's when it was over. It was like, what, he really retired. And now somebody said, oh, but what about Edge? You didn't really get, Edge is one. You couldn't even say that was a work. You couldn't even get a sense, oh, this is a work, because they didn't promote it. They just promoted that, Edge is coming out for a promo. That's it. That was it. Nobody. Only person that probably knew was Vince McMahon. I believe was Vince and probably Christian, but not everybody really. Us viewers didn't really know. Like, oh yeah, Edge is going to retire. So, and it was, as it went along, as he kept on talking, that's when we got, oh shit, he's retiring. But with Bryan, it was like they was promoting. That was almost like, okay, is this real? Is this not a shoot or something? But turned out to be real, and I thought it was a great. I thought it was a great. I thought it was a great retirement speech. It was natural emotion. They gave him a lot of time. Um, I actually heard that it drew great ratings too. His retirement speech. Um, so it was all good, man. And I'm gonna miss Bryan in terms of his in-ring, because I don't think this will be the last we'll ever see Bryan in terms of like seeing him, appear. But in terms of in-ring, I want to miss that guy. Okay, seems like I got some commentary from John. I'm glad he did, because I did not want to hear he could never walk again. Exactly. Exactly. That always crosses my mind when somebody start like, wait, hold up. Oh, no, what the hell? Oh no. Right. Sorry about that. What was I talking about? Oh, yeah. I was replying to John's comment. Yeah. Anytime a wrestler starts to, um have a lot of injuries, yeah, that's the last thing you really want to hear, is that they take a big bump or something, and it leads to them not walking again. Especially when it came to Edge's injury, because basically Edge even basically said that his doctor told him that he was basically one like hard bump away from probably being paralyzed, which is scary. So that always comes into effect whenever somebody, especially when somebody has an injury that has to deal with their neck or their nerves. because those are, or spine, because those are three things that you just don't want to F up. They always say that you never really get over a spinal injury, and since your spine is so imperative to your body. Mostly of all the bones, that's more than just a bone. I'm not saying oh yeah, you can you get broken rib, it's no problem. I've heard that having a broken rib is a pain because it affects your breathing. Like even if you have a cramp near your rib, that so it's good that Bryan got, and then it's good that Bryan got, especially if you listen to when he was on Sports Center talking with, I guess, coach or so, which I didn't watch. I only heard about it, I think the day after when I was watching Sports Center, they showed some clips of it. He shared some things that he did not share on Raw with everybody, but he shared on ESPN, and that he said that he kept from a lot of people, is that he started to suffer from post concussion seizures. And that's when I was like, whoa, like, I've never had a seizure. I hope to never have a seizure. I've actually seen a seizure in person. I think it was in 2003. It was just it was in McDonald's. It was in McDonald's of all places. It happened, and I didn't know what was going on. I haven't seen a seizure. Yeah, I know they're not. I know they're nothing to play around with. So once I heard that, I was like, okay, now I can definitely understand, why Bryan probably should not compete ever again. Because what if he was to have a seizure in the middle of the ring, But but it's good that he's able to walk. He's able to walk and probably will live, pain free, hopefully. John, do you think they will let him do commentary somewhere? I remember watching when Chris was watching IGN. They was talking about Bryan's retirement, and the guy was like, he would like for him to be a heel commentator. Probably, you never know. Probably they'll ask Bryan to, do commentary. I think it would be pretty cool to hear his, his analysis, since he was a wrestler, and most time, in all the sports, whether it be hockey, basketball, football, most time the color commentator is somebody that has done whatever the profession is, so they can offer, great analysis. In some cases with WWE, currently JBL doesn't most time, they give out analysis like he did back when he first commentated back in 2006, 2007 tenure. But it'd be pretty interesting if to answer the question. Yeah, probably. You never know. Yeah, I think they should let him do comedy because he could be good, just like Graves is. Yeah, I mean, I don't mind Corey Graves commentate. I've always, like I said, I could tell from his work as commentator that he was inspired by Jesse the Body Ventura's commentating work, and I get a lot of Jesse from Graves. John, the crowd was chanting TNA at one point. Yeah, when he was basically saying where do I go from here, you started hearing like this guy or a couple of guys say like TNA, and I'm thinking, yeah, I doubt it. I seriously doubt Bryan would go to TNA. And that's really not a knock at TNA as a whole company, but at the current state, TNA is like, I do not think he'll go. You know, I don't. But, looking back on, Bryan's career, like I said, for me, it really starts, with WWE because, and I always heard the name, and I always heard how great of a wrestler, Bryan, using his real name, Bryan Danielson was. I'm like, keep hearing about this Bryan Danielson guy. And I remember when Ring of Honor went to HD Net, when Ring of Honor finally got to like cable broadcast, instead of just doing pay-per-views. And he went up against Austin Aries. So it was my first time seeing Bryan, and I'm just like, I don't know this guy. This guy's an in-ring general. See, why he's so highly praised. And then I'm saying, okay, start hearing all the WWE, they're bringing him in. And I'm thinking, okay. And when NXT comes, and for some odd reason, I just felt it was odd that, when they brought him over to NXT, that he was like the jobber. He was like the jobber of the roster. He basically put over everybody, from Skip Sheffield or Ryback, to Michael Tarver, and it's just like, okay. And then, it's like the irony was that NXT, I felt the first season of NXT really got good when Bryan finally got eliminated, because they basically kept him on there and kind of, stem his feud with the Miz and even Cole, because Cole, he's a nerd. Yeah, he doesn't, he's a nerd. He doesn't eat beef, and it's just like, okay, when he lashed out on Cole and Miz, man, that was a great moment. That was a great moment. A great moment for Bryan. So, it started from there, and then when he beat Miz, which was probably one of Miz's best matches, best performances. And he only won United States Championship. He won United States Championship, but United States Championship. But it was almost like one of those situations where the build to him being United States Championship was more important than when he actually held the belt. Because when he held the belt, yeah, he was put on a great match, but he didn't really have a feud, like with the Miz. That was actually getting, promo time and actually getting, be able to tell a story. And so right after he beat Miz, he went on to go face Ziggler. He went on to have a triple threat submission. Triple threat submissions count anywhere match. Hell in a Cell with Miz and Morrison. Then at Bragging Rights, he went on to have a match with Ziggler. It was like IC champion versus United States champion during Bragging Rights, the Raw SmackDown theme. Then Survivor Series, he went against Teddy DiBiase for the belt. So it was like, yeah, he was going through these different opponents, but it never really felt like, okay, it never really felt like, okay, he's actually in a feud, actually in a storyline. And then, 2011 rolls around, he loses the belt to Sheamus. And Bryan, he got drafted over to SmackDown. And Money in the Bank rolls around. And I kid you not, Bryan was the last person I had to win that Money in the Bank, that SmackDown Money in the Bank. I knew they were doing something with Kane. No, it was 2011. No, that was last. That was the year after, the year before that. That was 2010 when Kane won it. So, but Kane was, but Kane was in there. Yeah, I believe Kane was in that Money in the Bank too. But it was Sheamus, it was Sin Cara, it was Wade Barrett, it was Justin Gabriel, Bryan, and I believe it was Kane. You know what? Well, let me just check. But anyway, Bryan was the last person I had to pick that, and I thought it was gonna be either Wade Barrett, um, or either oh, I think Cody Rhodes was the other person. Let me check. Let me check. There we go. Yeah, okay. Yep. Bryan, Kane, Sin Cara, Wade Barrett, Cody Rhodes, Justin Gabriel, Keith Sales, Shane. Yep. So yeah, I thought it was going to have to be Cody Rhodes, because Cody Rhodes was riding with momentum after beating Rey Mysterio, after feuding with feuding with Rey Mysterio. Felt Wade Barrett because the gore situation. I thought, okay, probably they'll the court impaired, maybe he'll still get a push. And Bryan of all people won it, and it was like, wait, whoa! I was like, okay, and that's kind of where the trend of having the Money in the Bank winner go on this horrendous losing streak started, because after Bryan won the Money in the Bank, he was losing match after match after match. He was used to build up the 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 who's the real Sin Cara feud. And then when he went against Wade Barrett at SummerSlam, he lost that too. And like he just keeps on losing, and finally, he was in the middle. He was kind of like pushed in the feud between Big Show and Mark Henry. As you know, there's the little guy that's that still wants a shot, because even when he went against Mark Henry in a hold on, guys. Because even against Mark Henry in a cage match for the World Heavyweight Championship, and he lost, he was still Money in the Bank. Then finally, TLC comes around after Big Show finally beats Henry for the World Heavyweight Championship. Mark Henry attacks Big Show, DDTs him on a bunch of chairs, and then Bryan comes out and pins Big Show 1-2-3 to win the World Heavyweight Championship. So it's not like they were going to have him cash in and lose the belt. And then WWE pulled off, I think, which was a pretty clever. I found it to be a twist, because I initially thought, okay, it's going to be Big Show that's going to turn heel, because I kept asking him. Then he lost the belt in 45 seconds. He lost the belt in 45 seconds. But as the weeks went on, you started to see this, the slow transition for Bryan from face to heel. Started to become more confident, but more in a overbearing way. And that's where the whole yes stuff started. It started off kind of like overbearing, like an overbearing way, not like something to embrace, like we do now with the yes movement. But it was almost like annoying. It started off as an annoyance. And, he started going with and then the whole thing with him and AJ, how he more showed that he's kind of like becoming a jerk now. He never really confessed his love, while AJ's confessing her love to him. He's not, and using her to his advantage. Like I remember when Big Show freaking plowed through her, and Big Show's all crying and everything, and then it's just Bryan just staring at him like, you are a bastard. And it's like, oh. And I was actually digging the Big Show Bryan feud because one, I was interested already with the twist that okay, instead of another Big Show heel turn, because it kind of would have been justified. Okay, losing 45 seconds, and Bryan smaller there. Okay, yeah, you could do Big Show versus Bryan, Day versus Goliath. But they did do get Day versus Goliath, but it was Bryan as the heel, as this overbearing, arrogant heel. That he kind of won the belt kind of out of luck because of Money in the Bank and also because of the circumstance. But he's acting all holier than thou, and showing off the belt. I remember he used to come out, he used to be all like this and everything, and it's like slowly but surely, like, wait, this guy is starting to become a heel. And I always felt that was interesting. Whoever move was that, if it was a good, I think it was a good twist. It was a good heel turn. And then comes WrestleMania when after Shane became Royal Rumble winner. And I was actually looking forward to, despite not the overall best build, like it really wasn't a build that really. I think the build for Bryan versus Sheamus at WrestleMania, it wasn't really anything like. I only really gave a reason for you to really get behind Sheamus to be the one to take the belt for Bryan, because it was almost as if they barely interacted. I'm not saying that they had to. From what I recall, I'm not saying that they had to be brawling every week, but it wasn't as if they really had promos against each other. It was just okay, Sheamus is going for the belt, and okay, you kind of expect a little bit more of a Mania. But still, I was interested in the match because they got snubbed off of the last year's WrestleMania, which was the United States Championship. And I was looking forward to that match. So then the match rolls around, and when Bryan kisses AJ, I'm like, okay, and then bro kick, and I'm like, whoa, what the hell? And 1, 2, 3, I'm like, wait a minute, and that's what kicked off the show. And I'm like, whoa, like, oh shoot. Bryan just lost the belt in 18 seconds. And I've always felt to this day that if WWE felt that, if they felt that move was to try to make history by, breaking SD Jones and King Kong Bundy's record, or get Sheamus more over, I've always felt, and I probably said this a couple of times in the corner, I always felt that did Sheamus more harm than good in 2012. And it helped Bryan more than it hurt him. And whatever was the initial thought, it did not turn out that way. I'm not saying that was somebody thought to kill off Bryan, but if it was, it backfired big time. And if it was to bring Sheamus to an all-time high, that backfired as well. Because I don't think the fans ever let that go. I think a lot of the fans felt that was like a slap to the face to, Bryan, actually, getting his WrestleMania moment as champion. I think fans, really felt, oh, wait a minute, that's kind of a slap to the face to him. But then you really start doing the yes stuff, and then when, then when AJ dumped him at like the wedding and everything, that's when he started doing the no, and and then him and Kane get together. They start doing those anger management sessions, which were probably one in the past 5 years or 10 years, probably the most funniest segments, that WWE has ever done. Because in a time where WWE does a lot of segments that are supposed to be funny, but they come across that they don't come across funny, they backfire. Those always hit hit the mark. And just like Team Hell No did. Team Hell No is one of my favorite makeshift tag teams in WWE history. The hugging and out and everything. And I'm the tag team champion. No, I'm the tag team champion. All that was all fun. And then around 2013 rolls around. After they lose the tag team belts, start to slowly see, okay, Bryan's being put in a lot of, meaningful single matches. He had like a brief face-and-face feud with Orton, and they turned out they pulled out some good matches. That street fight they had, and you started to see more and more. Okay, Bryan, he's getting pushed here, and it's natural. And he won the Money in the Bank, but I thought that he could have won the Money in the Bank because how over he was getting, how much his push was coming naturally. Then finally, they kind of like art reflecting life. I remember, I think it was like Cena, when it came time for him to, I think he picked his opponent. If I'm not mistaken, I think Cena picked Bryan because what the fans wanted. He picked Bryan to be, his opponent for the WWE Championship. And they started doing the whole thing where, Vince McMahon didn't want it. They didn't see Bryan as the, star. And then Bryan and Cena started doing, wrestler versus sports entertainer thing. When the match came, and I'm thinking, Bryan with all this momentum and all, but even though Cena got this injury, Cena had that I don't know, staff, I don't forget what it was in his elbow, like a tennis ball. I was like, okay, is everything gonna go with this? And next thing you know, these debuts the knee plus, and Bryan's WWE champion, and as great as it wasn't. Also, at the same time, wasn't that great later on because when Triple H turned on him, and Randy Orton cashed in Money in the Bank and became WWE champion. That started off the whole Yes Movement versus the Authority, and I still feel that should have been the end of the Authority. That should have been the first time the Authority should have ended when Bryan finally became them. And Bryan kept, Bryan won the belt back at Night Champ, but they added where Scott Armstrong, screwed Orton, and that's where when Triple H fired him, and then he said, "I'll take care of it." We were going to find out what that meant, and now Scott Armstrong like the Nick Patrick of WWE, and then he would lose. Then they would keep doing Bryan versus Orton when the belt was under abeyance. That was the exact word I remember, abeyance. And Battleground came, and Big Show caused the match to be a no contest. Finally, Hell in a Cell, Shawn Michaels screwed Bryan, and Orton got the belt back. And then Bryan went on to go with Punk to feud with the Wyatts, and then Bryan will go continue to feud with Bray. The Wyatt family. And then we're going on that Bray finally got to Bryan. Bryan became part of the Wyatt family, and fans really tore that up. It was like, we don't want this. And according to Bryan, his DVD, or I believe his book, he says that initially the plan wasn't for him to break away from the Wyatt that quick. He was supposed to stay with the Wyatt family. He was supposed to go against Sheamus at WrestleMania as a heel. But I think WWE realized, no matter, I guess, whether they wanted to or not, and Bryan, they didn't want to, and that wasn't in the cards at first, was that, okay, the fans are not buying this. We're going to have to push this guy. It's the most natural route for WrestleMania. Because when he broke away from Bray, it's one of the biggest. I'm surprised. I don't think they showed that in like his career moment when he turned against Bray. Because that was one of his best moments. That crowd ate that up. And then the Royal Rumble came, and he had a great match with Bray, even though he didn't win. But everybody still thought, oh yeah, maybe Bryan's still gonna he's gonna make amends and still be in the Rumble. And when he was in the Rumble, the crowd, that was another time the crowd just took over the show. And it led to Batista turning heel. Batista, as I said, that he should have been the heel when he came back from the get-go. And Bryan was still feeling Triple H, and they finally went against each other at WrestleMania to kick off the show. As one of the best WrestleMania opening matches. And I haven't watched that match since watching it live. And I tend on watching it again because probably tomorrow I'll be just sitting down watching a lot of Bryan stuff. I didn't really get the chance to watch a lot of Bryan moments. And he beats Triple H, and then goes on to beat Orton and Batista. Well, he made Batista, but still, who can say that in one night you got over on the three members of Evolution, 3 out of 4 members of Evolution one night in 2 separate matches and 2 meaningful matches. They had to beat Triple H to get to the championship match, and he won the championship. So it was a big moment. And then, he went him against Kane at Extreme Rules, and next thing you know, okay, Bryan's injured. And they had to vacate the belt. He made it through Payback, but later on, he didn't go against anybody. And it was just said, okay, man, strip him the belt. And he came back for Mania. He came back from Mania. Not from Mania, from Money in the Bank for just a segment. I think a segment with Bo. And, it's like, okay, we ever see him again. And he would always come back and, he would like tease if he's leaving, but he'll say he's coming back. And finally, he comes back at the Rumble. And gets eliminated rather quick. Now, I'm not sure if that was a health decision, but crowd didn't like it at all. And then he goes on to go against Reigns. They have a good match at Fastlane. Reigns beats him. And at WrestleMania, Bryan is added to the icy like thievery feud. And he wins the Intercontinental Championship. Like, almost like with Mania. Almost like when he won the World Championship, he didn't really get the whole IC belt long. Right after he won it, it was kind of over. And that would be the last time we ever see Bryan compete in the ring. But when I look back at Bryan's career, man, see a lot of guys get over, see a lot of guys connect with the fans, but not that many connect. I don't think connected to the fans like Bryan did, or probably will ever will. He was out of all the fan favorites on face, because most of this time, a lot of people, the heels get a lot of cheers, or but Bryan, he was a baby face, and he was a real underdog, because it wasn't like he won every match, even though he was still a main eventer during the thing with the Authority. It wasn't like he was like, you actually felt that, okay, he's going against the odds, not like just saying he's going against the odds, but he comes out every time. It's like, no, he's not doing that. And okay, just like the underdog tag for him is real. It's real. We could get behind that. And I'm not so sure, but until some babyface comes along that it gets over on the fans like Bryan did, or close. When they win the belt at Mania, it's like a end of a story. It's like, oh, great, it's a culmination of, yes, our guy did it. Because Bryan won the belt at Mania, it was like, man, how long has it been since the baby faces won at WrestleMania at the end? In the end, and everybody's going crazy. I can't recall. Because okay, yeah, Cena was the babyface for the mains, that he was in the main event, but when he won, it'll be mixed reactions. The crowd will be going crazy, but mixed, but like, no, it's like, yes, he did it. Probably last time for Cena was when he won, against on his first title against JBL. So that was another good thing about when Bryan won the belt. It felt like, oh wow, man, remember when the babyface used to win at the end of WrestleMania? It felt like a great feeling. That's what Bryan brought, a great feeling. So yeah, I don't see that really happening again. WWE for a while, until Somebody come like that's why I liked when I'm talking about the main roster because Cena line NXT. That's why I like when Sami Zayn and Bayley won because they were also tagged as underdogs, but you bought into that story. And so when they finally overcame everything and won, it felt good. It was a good feeling. And that's how I think a babyface winning the belt strip is something you look forward to. Especially in an age where, being a bad guy seems to get more cheers being a bad guy than being a face. But Bryan, great career, and as the hashtag's been going on, hashtag thank you Bryan, man, thank you for everything. Okay, John, I heard that WWE's thinking about bringing Dave to be guest referee. Yeah, I've heard something about, but Dave, that WWE thing wanting Dave to be back from Mania. I never really looked up into it that much. John had no idea that EC3 was in there. Yeah, EC3 was in WWE. Not that long though, but he wasn't WWE. John, do you think they will put Bryan in the Hall of Fame? Yeah, I think they'll put Bryan on there. I am hoping it's not next freaking year. I hope it's not next freaking year because then it will really feel like Edge. He retires, and then the next year he's in the Hall of Fame. Now one could say, oh, well, compared to Edge, Edge had already been in WWE for about a decade, about 12, 13 years. So one could look at it, oh, well, so, but still, even when Edge, when he announced his retirement, not when he announced it on Raw, when he announced it on SmackDown, and you saw the sign, Edge, HOF, 2012. I remember me and Chris looked at them and were like, for some reason that's actually going to come true. And then when they're announcing the next inductee for it, the Hall of Fame, and they showing all the crowd and everything. And once you think I'm like, oh, here we go. I'm like, okay, man. And that's not to say it's right. You don't think Edge deserved to be in the Hall of Fame? No, it's not that I'm saying. Not that I'm saying he didn't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame for after all the things he's done. It's just I felt it was too quick. And that's what I hope for Bryan. I hope it's not next year. Give it some time. Give it some time. John, I think that was one of the best heel turns for Orton. Yeah, that was a double heel. That was a double heel turn. Because Triple H also turned heel that night too. Because Triple H was during the build was being presented as the face, even though he was special guest referee, but he was being built as the face. He was being built as the face. He was actually supposedly supporting Bryan as to Vince being anti-Bryan. So yeah, it was. So it was a double heel turn. And my thing is, that was a good heel turn on Orton, but I think overall that was not really a good run for Orton. I mean, how many times did he go? How he was almost like mood swing Orton. How many times did he go from talking up to Stephanie and Triple H, and then the next week, I just hope that you guys can accept my apology and everything. It's like, wait a minute. First, you want to speak up to them because you're the guy. You want to, present yourself as the man. All of a sudden, you're bowing up to them the next week. It's like, I don't get it. So, I didn't really like that reign as World Heavyweight Champion for Orton. And the funny thing was that fans were calling for Orton to turn heel. They wanted to turn back heel, and so when it finally happened, because even Orton likes working as a heel. He's a forever heel. So I'm like, okay, Orton back being okay. But I'm like, my opinion, yeah, I did not really like that reign, or that heel run for Orton. Well, more when he was champ as it. I didn't feel that. I think that was, if you don't count his first ever reign as champion when he won the belt from Benoit, you don't count that. I think that was probably, for me, in my opinion, one of his probably his worst reign as champ, because it wasn't like Rock as the corporate champ, where Vince was the leader of the corporation, but it wasn't like Rock took not like he was second fiddle, not like oh yeah, it's Vince McMahon. Oh yes, the Rock's like, oh no, Vince McMahon, no, it's not like Rock took a backseat to Vince McMahon. Yes, Vince McMahon was the boss, but yeah, Rock was his champion. But Rock carved out his own name for himself. Like, okay, he's not taking a backseat to Vince. But when Orton was champ, it's like, yeah, he took a backseat to Triple H and Steph. They were like his mommy and daddy. Going from, like I said, if you had a problem with them, you would get in their face. Then all of a sudden, I hope you can accept my apology. Like, where's Matt? What's going on here? John, when JBL was talking about retirement, was he talking about when he quit in 2009? Anytime, like because you've been hearing a lot lately in these Kalisto matches. Okay. Anytime you hear them bring up John, his retirement or anything, the first time they're probably referring to when JBL lost Ray back in 2006. Because the funny thing is, Ray kind of forced him to leave twice. First time in 2006, then the second time, yeah. The second time was in 2009 at WrestleMania 25 when Ray beat him in record time. And JBL was so embarrassed. The only thing he could say was, I quit. So I think, it's funny when Michael just break their head, but Ray, put you out of retirement. It's like, yeah, but Ray actually did it twice. Okay. But the funny thing is about Bryan's retirement speech is that as he was being sent off by his peers and everything, when he's leaving, you think you see him get a hug from Vince, and then the camera is facing away from the Minitron, And you see Vince basically gets about to exit, and you see like Titus O'Neil, just like grab his arm in a playful man, and you just see Vince, snatch his arm back, and the cameras immediately fade to black right after that, really like end the show. And I didn't really think much of it. Just, okay, what was that about? Okay. Next thing you know, I'm at work / school. Look, next thing you know, man, people talking about Titus O'Neil being suspended. I'm thinking, wait a minute. I'm thinking, you don't think. I'm like, I know it's not what I think it's for. Sure enough, it's for the whole little thing with Vince. And I mean, be it. I'm at work, so I'm just like, oh man, what the hell? And then it's like, not only was he suspended, then when I see how long the suspension was almost like, you just gotta be kidding. 90 days. That's how much. That's basically 3 months. That's how much. That's because you get 30 days for failing the wellness policy. You get 60 days. You do it again. Third time, you're out. So that was 30 days times 3. And I'm just like, yo, seriously. Vince, so you came with the decision to suspend Titus for that. And then I see that there's an interview with Titus O'Neil. Then at first I kind of wanted to believe, wait a minute, could this be like a hush work by WWE to get Titus over for some reason, in some way? But then I'm like, no, it can't be. Like that just stayed, and that just came in my head, and then just like that, poof, that thought was gone. That theory. I'm just like, really? So he's gonna miss WrestleMania. He's gonna miss WrestleMania because the whole thing with Vince, just grabbed his arm in a playful manner, and like a smile on his face. Vince just snatched his arm and just like, oh, like really that. That deserves 90 days. And then a couple of days later, like 2 days later, you get the report that, okay, they've lowered, his suspension to 60. It's like, okay, they lowered it, but still, why is he being suspended in the first place? And I hear, it was to make an example out of, for the roster. It's like, why do you need to make an example out of one of your seems to be actual good guys in the WWE? You see, probably second to Cena, the most PR guy in WWE, probably Titus O'Neil. That's what it seems like. Second to Cena, he's there. It's Titus O'Neil. And he does a great job at it too. So it's like, what example are you really making? I would like to say an absurd one, a pretty dumb one. And I will not be surprised if come Monday we start getting Titus chants. Like almost like in defiance, almost like, yo, like we're not going to, the fans are not going to accept it. Like, what did Titus do to deserve that? Like basically bring him back. And I would not be surprised if we start, well, I probably start seeing a lot of Titus, signs, but we start hearing chants. I won't be surprised if we just, what, we're bringing him back. He should never been suspended in the first place. But Titus, being the guy that he is being very respectful for the whole decision. That's just the type of guy Titus is. He's not really given any ill will. And the funny thing is, I found out that that Batista is a great friend of his. That him and Batista are great friends. And I was showing an article, through my brother that basically Dave basically was talking. We've seen the tweets that Dave basically talked about with the whole Titus O'Neil situation. He also said that he basically reached out to Titus and they told him a request to leave. And one would think Titus probably would have a justified reason to leave. After being done dirty like that, it's like if it happened once, we say it wouldn't happen again. So it's just, I really hope that this just gets dropped completely. The suspension just gets dropped completely, because it's like there's no way to really describe the almost like the idiocracy of this suspension. I just don't get it. I think if you think too hard on it, it'll make your head hurt. Guys, like you see it, you're like, oh, I guess Titus probably decked Vince in the face for some reason. No, he just grabbed him in a playful manner. Wait a minute, what? It's like, wait, are you kidding me? It's just dumb. John, what do you think WWE needs to do to get ratings up? Well, before, okay, let me just first answer the question. Trying to do that more often. A lot of people do that. They work around the question before finally giving it. I don't know if it would bring the ratings up, but just if I was WWE, I would just try to trying to think of the right word. Just put together a cohesive show, on a weekly basis. I don't know if that's going to get the ratings up to like Attitude Era level, 5.6. Or 7 or 8. I don't think that. I still think that's to do with the current time. It's all about timing, and I think the late '90s, was a boom period for wrestling. Just the culture of what the '90s, especially the mid to late '90s, was. Like I always said, with anti-establishment and sex and violence and anti-heroes galore and basically being cool to be bad. It just, wrestling at that time just fit it. So I think that's one reason why the ratings. Also, there was competition back then, fierce competition. So I don't know, even though it wasn't really no competition, like another company competing in WWE, like full for the WWE was. But you look at SmackDown during Paul Heyman's run, it was a pretty cohesive show. I think, the SmackDown 6 or SmackDown was better than, Raw back then. So I think it's just, I don't know if it get rain, but just start putting together more cohesive Raws. And I've always said, while there's been some good 3-hour Raws ever since Raws moved to 3 hours on a permanent basis, 15. While there have been some good Raws that ever since Raw went to the 3-hour format, I think in overall the 3-hour format, I don't think it's working. There's like around that 2-hour mark. Either the most on the crowd is just completely out of it because it's been too much fluff that's needless and unnecessary. Um, just 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 start putting together more cohesive Raws, I guess. Because I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, that time I watched Raw, and while there's some good ones, overall I'm like, overall I don't think that was a really good Raw. Like even if you take Bryan's retirement speech out, um, take Bryan's retirement speech out, and probably Dean, Reigns, and Brock. That Raw was just okay. And just by the way, that Raw once again just increased my desire to want to see a Dean Brock match more than I want to see Reigns Brock too. I do want to see that for reasons because I like to see an actual winner this time. But it's like, okay, I don't know if WWE I don't know if they're realizing this, but if they are, hey, I think you guys are kind of making fans want to see Dean and Brock actually go at it. They actually want to see, okay, what does Brock really going to have to do to keep this guy down? Like, I guess I would like to see that story, right? Does Brock? Yeah, we know Brock is this destructive force and all, but this guy Dean says you're going to have to kill me. What actual lengths does Brock going to have to go to if he wants to keep this guy down? And we know that Ambrose is going to keep on going. So I really want to see that story play out. Ambrose and Brock. I really do. And John, you say I hope Dean wins that fast. Like, I do too. I hope Dean wins that fast lane. I know it looks like they're building up, Reigns and Triple H. They've been building up since, Survivor Series, but I really hope it doesn't lead to Reigns. If he wills to win, that Dean will turn on him. Because I think that's just going to make fans really dislike Reigns even more. That, okay, you want to turn the guy we're liking Dean, but you want to turn him on Reigns, I guess, to get more sympathy from us, and it's not, okay, we're not going to buy that. So, so it's just like I just hope it's not Dean turning heel on Reigns. My friend Darnell, who is I go to school with, he basically said that he feels that Dean's gonna win that fast lane, because Brock is going to have 5 reigns. This was like his theory for like the Royal WrestleMania, because and then before he can pin Reigns, the Wyatts are going to come out and cause Brock the match. Wasn't going to set up Brock versus Bray. You can tell it's probably going to happen. And Dean's going to get the win, and he's going to face Triple H at Mania, and that's where Reigns screws him. And in essence of screwing him, he finally succumbs to Triple H's offer, and by doing that, Triple H strips himself of the belt and gives it to Reigns, setting up Reigns as the new corporate. And the only problem that we really have with that is that, okay, do I really want to see Reigns turn heel? Not necessarily, but at this rate, it's almost like if it would happen, I would not be surprised, because it would kind of come across natural. But I say I do not really want to see him in Ambrose break. I like that bromance. Like, I kind of feel they're like the army of two of WWE. For those that remember the game Army of Two with Salem and Rios. Yeah, I kind of get that feeling between those two. But And also, the only problem else we had with that scenario would be that it would be another champion associated with the Authority, which I'm getting tired of. You know, the heel champion associated with the Authority. There's gotta be a heel champion associated with Authority. Even though the New Day in a way are kind of associated with the Authority. Cause they were kind of doing, dirty work for the Authority when they soften up Reigns and Ambrose at one time. This was like way before, it was like in the summer, 2015 or so. And even a couple of months after. So, so yeah, I'm kind of getting tired of that. I'm getting tired of the Authority in general. And also, it could set up. It also could set up a Seth Rollins face turn, because I do feel if Rollins comes back, he's going to be a face. Because probably, the Authority are probably going to set their eyes on somebody else, and Rollins is going to realize what Dean and Roman and Orton's been trying to tell him, that you're kind of like the flavor of the month. Well, once I think even Cena said, they're going to jump to somebody else. John, it looks like you were right. The Usos and the Dudleys. Yep, I was right about the Usos and the Dudleys. I called that moments before it happened. That if the Dudleys was to turn heel, they would probably turn heel on the Usos. It would probably best that would happen. They'll set up a Blood Brothers versus, brothers, even though Devon and Bub been together for so long that they are almost like brothers. On Raw, the Dudleys turned heel on the Usos after them beating the New Day and Mark Henry in a tables match. And I didn't see the segment on SmackDown, but basically the Dudleys have kind of denounced tables, their association with tables, because of the fans. Almost like the fans have forgotten that tables are synonymous with the Dudleys. I guess the Dudleys were upset that kind of tables took a life of their own. How the crowd, we want tables instead of, thinking of them whenever tables were brought up. And personally, I hope it's not the Dudleys and Usos, feud ties into the New Day, so there's like a triple threat match at WrestleMania. I would like for there to be the Usos and the Dudleys to be not for the title. Now, it could probably lead to whoever wins it will go on to be number one contender or something, but no, I would like for it to just be a non-title feud. I would like for that to be at Mania. A non-title tag team match that's not with makeshift. No, it's between two teams that just don't like each other. They got beef. And then you also have the tag team championship match. I think that would be pretty cool. Final thing I want to talk, so on SmackDown, Raw, SmackDown. SmackDown was basically headlined by AJ Styles versus Y2J Part 2. And I remember the day before the SmackDown came on. Oh, shoot. It's Alana. Gemini girl. Hey, Malcolm, it's me, Alana. I'm about to go see Deadpool, but one question, Hermano. I still watch TNA, but since Kong got hurt was released, do you think Triple H should bring her back on NXT? Other than that, bye. Got to go tell Chris. I got to go tell Chris I said hello. Bye, Hermano. Oh, it's good hearing from you, Alana.
Alana's there?
Now, for your question, do I think Triple H would bring her back? It was Triple H that did bring Kong into WWE, and she always said she would like to come back to WWE. She just would like to get the call. And if that is the case, But do I think the Triple H will bring her back? Probably so. I mean, with what's going on at NXT, the Triple H could probably think, hey, I could benefit off, for me because it's NXT. I'm not so sure for the main roster. I don't know what I mean, but hey, I got the ultimate match with NXT, and I got Nia Jax, so I could probably do Khan versus Nia Jax. Okay, and I already got Khan here. Okay, I got more experience. I have Khan over there. So you know what? Man, I'm about to make this decision and get Khan over. That's a Triple H impersonation. Yes. Who was there? So it would be cool if Khan will come back because it wasn't like she announced a retirement from wrestling, But even though I felt with her run with TNA, with some of her matches felt like she was going through the motions. I don't know if that's because she was getting older or not, but heck, maybe you never know. Maybe she comes to NXT with all the momentum. It will revigorate her because I felt Rhino looked a little bit, like re-energized. So when he came to NXT, so you never know. And Alana, I hope you enjoyed Deadpool. So far, I've had three friends that have enjoyed Deadpool so far. Hopefully you make it the fourth. Well, also Craig wanted to go see it, but he hasn't come back with his review yet. So if I get your thoughts on before Craig does, you'll be the fourth. John, I think that would be good. I don't know if it's towards Usos and Dudleys, or is it towards what Alana was talking about with Cock. And also Alana, I still watch TNA. Oh well, that's good to know because quite unfortunately, I haven't really kept it. I don't think I'm going to keep my word when I said I would get back into watching TNA in 2016. So far, the overall show and everything has really not really regained my interest to actually do that, with the exception of Angle and everything. But I think Angle's done with TNA because I think he's about to have a match with Rey Mysterio in March. His first ever match non-TNA after not being with TNA. But I was talking about AJ Styles versus Y2J II. John. Oh, hold on, John. We have not had a good black women's champion. We have not had a good black women's champion since Jazz. And the WWE, the last good black women's champion in WWE was Jazz. Because it wasn't until Alicia Fox won the championship won the Divas championship back in 2010, and her reign it was almost like it was like just there, even though her best match as champ was her Money in the Bank match against Eve. That's probably one of Alicia Fox's best matches in her career. If you haven't seen it, I recommend it. It just flowed very well. But once Melina came back, it was like boop. Your flavor fizzled out, and she just looked like she was second rate to Melina. And I liked Melina too. But it was like you could just tell. That's when you really started feeling the flavor of the month stuff. And that was like a common thing with the women's division. Somebody became champ that was new, is like kind of felt like a flavor of the month deal. But AJ Styles, AJ Styles and Y2J Part 2. I remember the night before So my friend name was like, yeah, this been getting, rave reviews, already being heralded as a match of the year candidate. And that piqued my interest even more, even though I had anticipated for it in the first place. And that was a case of building up, actually showcasing that you can promote a television match, actually make a television match feel meaningful by giving it promotion. Because they gave that 2 weeks of promotion. But I thought, after hearing the match of your candidate, from my friend, hearing that people were raving as a magic, I was like, wait a minute, whoa, so that goes against what I thought was going to be the case. I thought it was not going to get a chance to really be, because I thought there would end up no contest because of somebody named The Miz. But that was not the case. Well, I thought the match was really good. It was better than the first one. You can tell that AJ and Y2J have now really gelled with each other, because you kind of tell in that first match that was like the first time they ever. You tell that was like the first time they ever worked with each other. Not all the time. Sometimes these first time matchups they go just like that. You can kind of tell in that first match, okay, this is the first time they worked with each other. And Jericho got the wins. And to me, I felt I was actually surprised by that, because my initial thought was, if Miz was not going to interfere, Jericho was going to lose to AJ, and that was going to increase his frustration. Now he's going to start getting frustrated, because he was saying that was already eating him up, but really going to start eating him up, that he will turn into a heel. That him not being able to beat AJ was going to give him so much that, now, it's come so personal for him. Now he's come so desperate. But he actually won. And then the day before, and I wasn't even going to talk about this until my brother found out, Chris found out about it. Chris Jericho had to react to some Twitter fans over the AJ match. And the fans' tweet was something along the lines of, like, "Wow, way to go to bury, like, young good talent like AJ Styles." Something along the lines of that. And then, Jericho basically replies, "So when I win, I'm burying young talent, and when I lose, I'm a jobber. Get a life." And it's like, yo, it's just one loss for AJ. And it was to Chris Jericho. I'd rather have him lose to Chris Jericho than to Curtis Axel, who AJ beat on his first ever time on SmackDown. It's just one loss for AJ. And don't forget, I really don't like the term bury. I think it's one of the most overused and improperly used wrestling terms. Bury or bury. I think fans, I think us fans have a tendency of using that to describe whenever one of our favorites lose. Oh, it was buried. AJ didn't get buried. I bet you there were fans thought that he got buried because he didn't win the Royal Rumble. And I wasn't expecting him to win the Royal Rumble. So he didn't get buried. He just lost. He just took a loss. He lost. He looked good in defeat. Like, come on now. I wasn't expecting AJ to go undefeated throughout the year. Now, I was surprised that he lost, because I didn't think that's the route they were going. That's all. John AJ has hit the class. Yep, he's hitting the Styles. Yeah, he has hit the Styles class. No, he's getting on Curtis Axel. I think that's the only person he's hitting on. The only person he's hitting on is Curtis Axel. I could be wrong. Johnny lost one of the greatest of all time. Yeah, he lost one. Yes, and it's not like you know he had not beaten Jericho. You know, he already had beaten him, so it's like, okay, they're tied. You know, so I want to consider it a burial. No, I wouldn't. I don't think his momentum is shot because of that. Now, every one situation is like, okay, you know, it's almost like somebody's getting a big push and almost like I don't understand the reason to have them lose that match. You know, like with Punk and Triple H at Night Champions. Now, I'm not gonna say that buried Punk, but I don't see why they had to add that stipulation, which kind of made it a guarantee that Triple H was going to win that. If he lost, he would have to leave or whatever. You know, I like that, just even, but then it got all overbooked. I don't understand why they had to kind of put a halt to Punk's momentum. You know, that's the situation. I'm like, I don't really understand why, you know, Punk lost that match. Or like with Kalisto and Del Rio. I didn't understand you have Kalisto beat him 2 times, and then all of a sudden, after he finally gets the belt, he loses to him the next day. Because don't forget, SmackDown is taped on Tuesdays. So I didn't understand that. That's a move where I don't understand. But you're trying to make it that AJ and YJ is competitive. Okay, I understand. Okay, Jericho winning. But I'm not phased by it. I don't think it's a burial. I think that person really jumping the gun, you know, getting ahead of themselves. And I really don't fault Jericho for his reply. I don't. You know? And I hope you don't fault, you know, and I hope you don't fault me for, you know, this wrestling corner. You know, it was great to oh wait, John. Oh, hold on. John's fans sound like Punk when he lost Taker. Yeah, look, when Punk lost to Taker, I didn't think that was a burial for Punk because, like, hey, you know, almost like losing to Taker at Mania. That's almost for the fact that you're in a Mania match with Taker is almost like an honor. And at that time, Punk had the belt for so long that he was looked as a considerable threat. So it's almost like, okay, he loses to the only thing that you could probably say that probably hurt Punk is that he lost 3 meaningful matches leading up to that. You know, where he lost to Rock at Royal Rumble, he lost to Rock at Elimination Chamber, and then he also lost to John Cena in that classic Raw match that they had. That was probably the only thing that, okay, he's coming off 3 big losses. And the only win that he got was to go on the face Undertaker. But I didn't think that buried Punk when he lost to Taker. But in this day and age, I think when people say that term bury, they twist the definition. They just apply it to whenever their favorite loses to somebody. Like being buried is like you lose bad, or you really put in a situation where it just ruins your character. Like it just looks like, man, you can just tell like this is like real dig at the person, a real like a dig at their character. You know, that's a real bear where you can tell it's bad. If the person looks good in defeat, I wouldn't call that a bear. Now, like I said, there's something. It's like, did I think Triple H needed to win the Royal Rumble? No, but I don't think that's the case with him. I don't think that's the case that Ambrose got buried. But it's just like, once again, a decision where why Triple H to win. And don't think that I hope you don't think that it's like, oh yeah, I have like a real hate for Triple H. No, I don't have a hate. I don't have a hate for Triple H. But I think you will find a lot of situations with Triple H. In some match with Triple H, do you find no situation of Triple H like, no, I don't really understand No, did Triple H really need to win that? Was that really the right move? Because case in point, look with Sting. I still don't think that Sting should have lost that. But do I think that buried Sting? No, because his career is so strong, and how much it's been cemented is so strong, is that loss is really not going to hurt him. Now, do I think that it's unfortunate? Yeah, he didn't get a WrestleMania win, and which was his debut match. Yeah, but I don't think it buried him. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed, the Wrestling Corner. That's basically it for me. I hope you enjoyed this edition of Wrestling Corner. Once again, this was episode 18 of season 5. I think I can safely say, I think I can surely say that the Wrestling Corner will be back this this upcoming Tuesday. Would be the it would be the go home edition for Fastlane, where I'll be basically giving my predictions and everything for Fastlane. But I hope you guys, and if you're in the North, I hope you stay stay comforting, stay cozy, stay away from the life-threatening, wind chills. And if you watch the NBA All-Star Weekend, I hope you enjoyed it. I think this one was pretty good. But until the next corner, until Tuesday, stay easy, guys. And like always, peace.